Hello, my name is E30G and I wanted to make this video to talk about Guild Wars. So, as we know, Guild Wars is our main PvP mode in the game, and it's what most people will play in their polls and build their accounts around. Since the game started, we haven't really seen much change to Guild Wars outside of the introduction to limited guild battles. And I think there's a few key issues with Guild Wars that are preventing it from realizing its potential. One being lack of unit diversity, and the other being a lack of player creativity. Unit diversity being that you can only really select 3 offensive and 3 defensive units, and in most cases they need to be whatever current unit is on the banner rotation. So even though at this point we have 100+ units in the game, coming up at the year 5 mark, you only really get to use 3 essentially, which kind of sucks, right? Because we put all this time into building all these units up to use them, and maybe it's for a couple weeks, maybe it's for a month or two. We know that Sephiroth's kind of been on a tear for a long time at this point, but he's like one of the rare cases. To talk about player creativity, I think this kind of piggybacks off of unit diversity, since most people will always use the meta units. Like, yeah, you can go off script and not use meta units, but since this is a team-based mode, if you have them available, and you're essentially like trolling your guild by not putting out the best team you have at your disposal. So I put together a little Figma to kind of run through some things I think we can change. So I stole this screenshot from an old Umbra vid, but if we remember, over a year ago the devs tried to revamp the mode in JP by trying out this Castle Siege mode we can see here. However, there was a huge flaw with the mode, which was that it wasn't PvP at all, and needless to say, the mode flopped and never made it to global at all. So the dev team rolled it back pretty quickly, and we never even got to try it. And I remember initially hearing about the mode after the JP livestream, in which, this was announced, and a few people referenced Epic 7 due to the UI layout we can see here. I also happen to play Epic 7, and I have since 2020, so I'm super familiar with the Guild War layout here, which I enjoy. So I wanted to talk about Epic 7, their Guild War structure, and how the team over at Gumi can possibly salvage the dev time they already committed to making this PvE mode. Here's a screenshot of the main screen for Guild Wars, and I kind of did a really shoddy job of adding some little elements from wotv to kind of make it a little more relatable for everybody. And the way Epic 7 works, for those who are not super familiar, we have 3 fortresses and strongholds here. So in this Guild War, members are placed throughout here, and in order to cap, you need to knock out all the fortresses and then take out the stronghold once that gets unlocked. So my idea here is to utilize this layout to better utilize all the maps the devs have built, which will open up more unit diversity and player creativity, which I kind of hit on before. So we go to the next thing I put together. We could see that each of these fortresses, maybe it represents a different map, and we can throw different rule sets on it so we can better use all the characters that we've built up over the years. Expand this out a little bit. In this example here, I've taken some screenshots from previous limited guild battles to show that, maybe one of these fortresses gives a specific set of buffs to either maybe certain elements, maybe another one focuses on job types, and then maybe we can really go off the rails and maybe we can add buffs for MR or SR units and do really off the wall stuff by giving them huge flat stat buffs to make them more relevant, even if they're stacked up against UR units. I mean, maybe we can make bow great again, even though it's never been great, and give them some piercing and stuff like that. Painting this picture here, let's kind of walk into what the Guild War battle would look like when it's played out. Again, this is borrowing from Epic 7's layout that they have right now, but when you tap into one of the fortresses that I showed on the previous screen, this is kind of what it looks like. So there's a castle in the center that acts like a pseudo boss of the fortress, and whoever occupies this gets extra stat buffs. Each player gets 3 attacks here, up 2 rounds each, and they get to choose whoever they want to attack freely. If I tap into one of the towers, for example, kind of slide to the right here, you can see a combat log for the particular defense. You can see who's already attacked it, how they performed, and then if you want to attack this person in particular, then you get moved on to the next screen, where you'll get to choose who you want to use to attack defense, as we can see here. I have thrown some rules here for demonstration purposes on what I think would be the most fun, and also not like overly limiting what we can do here. So rule number 1, so you can't use the same team units for both attacks. This is just to make sure everyone can go deeper into their unit pool. Number 2, VC and gear can be reused, but I'm not too sure if this works, and it may have to work in the way that sub teams for offense and defense are currently, just probably because how the game's coded. And number 3, so if a unit dies in an attack, they can't be used for the rest of the Guild War period. This one's a little tricky. I do believe this would make it to where people would have to be careful and selective with their attacks, because you want to build your team in a way where one of your units won't die. But you know, say your whole team gets wiped out, then you lose them, that's 3 units down. For new players, may not be possible, right? Just because they don't have 100 plus reincarnated units like the rest of us that have been playing since day 1. Then some additional changes. I think Guild War should be 3 times a week, just to give people a bit of a break, since Guild War would take considerably longer under this format. I think there should be a fresh map rotation because we have tons of maps at our disposal, and I think the devs should want to utilize all the assets they took time to build. And 3, initial placement for offense and defense. I think this opens up a lot in terms of team building, so they can maximize buffs and movement capabilities. In this example, if we kind of dive in closer here, I did set it up in a way where we can like see the defensive builds that other people may be using, but that may take away an element of strategy, so maybe we don't see what gear they have on, what espers and BCs, so there's a level of communication that has to happen with like Discord or something, to where maybe you hit a dude, you don't know he's evade, and be like, oh, gotta communicate that out so everybody knows to kind of build their offensive teams differently here. And then if you do tap here, you kind of just get brought back to this screen so you can customize it and go back in. Taking all of this into consideration, is this even realistically doable from Gumi's perspective? We know that UI wise, this has mostly been built out, and what I'm asking for here is essentially class match on offense and Guild War on defense in terms of the feature specs. We also don't know what Gumi's dev cycle is, and if they can just take the 2 stacks of code, mash them together, but I do think this is something that would be worthwhile for the community. I also think this could drive in new players while also getting some of the players we lost along the way back. The main reason we know that people left was, during the whole JP catch-up where the pacing of units got completely out of hand and hollow VCs are awful, and they didn't increase our passive currency gain we could generate without having to spend money. So revamping Guild War here could be a way where people come back, they can go deeper into their accounts, have fun, and bring them back in. Currently, I do work in the industry, and I have plenty of thoughts on how monetization has been, what it means for the game now and in the future, but I may go into that in another video. I do appreciate everybody watching this. If you do, thank you, and I wish you all the best of luck on your future polls. Feel free to add any thoughts, comments, or anything. Maybe Justin sees it. Maybe he tosses it over to one of the product managers over there. Who knows? But we'll catch you next time. Thanks.